First up today, we have a presentation from VEEM. VEEM, trading under the ASX code VEE, with a market capitalization of 250 million, is a designer and manufacturer of disruptive, high-technology marine propulsion and stabilisation systems for the global luxury motor yacht, fast ferry, commercial workboat and defence industries. Presenting today is VEEM Managing Director, Miocevich. Mark, great to have you back, and please take it away.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining the presentation today. I think Paul hit the description right on the head there. I'll give you a bit of a background of VEEM first. It's probably quite important to understand who we are and where we've come from. So perhaps the first slide would be great. So VEEM commenced in 1968 and listed on the Australian Stock Exchange in 2016, and we've been making profits and dividends every year since listing. The company's been profitable for all of the last 40 years, every year, and it's a family-controlled business, and I'm a member of that family. So my brothers and I started off in 1983 running the business. We have currently a first half turnover around 38 million, EBITDA of about 7, and NPAT about 3.5, and we expect that to deliver a similar result for the back half of the year. So it's all going very well for us. We increased our capacity last year in propeller production. That's really helped us, and gyros has had an uptick as well, which is terrific to see as well. We're located in Perth, Western Australia. We have about 15,000 square metres of manufacturing facilities on 2 sites. We made sure that about 4 years ago, we opened a gyro manufacturing facility, which enables us to produce up to around $100 million worth in the one building. So we're well set up for the future in that area. Have about 200 staff. We have R&D engineers, graduate engineers, apprentices. We cover the whole gambit. And one of the things I'm very proud of at VEEM is we have tremendous accreditation. So 9,000 serious quality, 14,000 environmental, 45,000 occupational safety and health. We have a security accreditation to secret, and recently we mastered the ISO 27000 cybersecurity, which is a really complex standard to get, but it's extremely important in today's environment. Most of our revenue is generated from these major segments. Obviously, propellers, monoblock propellers, which are one-piece propellers you see on boats, gyro stabilizers for bigger vessels, the defence market, and mining and industrial products and services, the traditional side of the business. So the next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about propellers. So we manufacture the most advanced monoblock propellers in the world. We also operate the most advanced propeller manufacturing facility. It's a 24-hour, 7 days a week, lights off for all of our machining capability, and we're moving more and more towards automation every year. We produce up to about 5,000 propellers a year, and generally up to about 2.2 metres in diameter, but we can go to 4.6 metres. And we supply it to most of the larger premium boat brands in the US and Europe. So we're talking Ferry, Azimut, Viking, Princess, the big boys in that market, but a lot of also commercial ones that are demanding, and defence, of course, locally. So we generally go from about 0.5 of a metre up to 4.6 metres. And there's a new build market of about $350 million a year, and there's a replacement market of $2.3 billion a year. So there's a little bit of room for us to grow into there. And we were a little concerned some years ago that the propeller market wasn't particularly huge for us, and we would need to find a way of producing propellers cheaper to be able to enter the mass slow boat market. And we're actually working to that point, and we're very, very close. But what we did to combat that is we looked at another product, such as gyro stabilizers. However, in the meanwhile, Greg Sharrow developed a propeller, which you can see in the picture there, which is the biggest step forward in propellers for 180 years. And we signed in October a exclusive worldwide agreement for monoblock propellers from 500 millimetres to 5 metres. And this agreement will run for the life of the patents, which is 17 years, plus if there's any new patents that come in. The unique thing about this is VEEM is the only manufacturer that Sharrow could find globally that can actually manufacture these propellers. They're so complex, but we've spent 20 years perfecting the exact techniques. that are required for it. So in April, we then formally accepted the contract. We've done our testing. The results were terrific. We found fuel consumptions that were higher, in fact, than the first vessel tested in the US, albeit over a narrower speed range. So that gives Sharrow plenty of fodder there to go and develop the designs further, and we'll be manufacturing those designs. So you can see that there's got opportunities with noise, vibration, the back down qualities, turning capability are all enhanced. So there's a lot of markets there for us to work on. Next slide, please. The VEEM Gyro Stabiliser was a product we chose, which has got a $1.1 billion annual market for builds and about a $13 billion retrofit market. And we're addressing the large end of the market, and we are really the only major player in that space. So this is designed to be simply a spinning flywheel. When the boat tries to roll, the ball of the gyro with the flywheel will precess, and that will produce a resistive torque, and the vessel just doesn't roll. Any speed, any weather conditions, it just works. It's really the future of technology, as can be seen in the US in the recreational market, where it's now taken over completely. So we have these wonderful production facilities where we can do up to $100 million turnover. We've got past the COVID dramas that we had, where we were locked into Western Australia and couldn't service our product. We had to fight through that and develop skills overseas with a new technology, which is very, very difficult. This last year, we've seen sales and orders from Strategic Marine of a dozen units, with many more coming. It's a permanent offering for them now. So they're now tendering major contracts around the region in the Middle East and in Asia. And we expect that to be very successful. So they can actually use a smaller vessel with a gyro stabiliser to replace larger vessels and be more stable. So when you're doing crew transfers, it's a very important part of that. Okay, next slide. So VEEM Defence is something we've been doing for about 30 years. We started off doing some of the old Oberon submarine components and moved on to the Collins class in 1988. And we've been producing valves and other critical castings since that time. And in fact, we've done over $280 million worth of work since 1988, which makes us one of the, certainly outside the primes, certainly one of the major, if not the major defence manufacturer in WA. We've supported Austral ships as well for 30 years in defence with their ride control systems and propulsion. In fact, we supplied the LCS program in America and also the Joint High Speed Vessel program as well. So we've worked very closely with them. We're also working on the Hunter demonstration program at the moment, which is for the Hunter class frigates that Australia's building. And we're one of only two suppliers globally that can produce this accuracy of work that's required. So it's a work that requires a $500,000 laser scanner to measure the blades when they're finished. And it's all done to secret level, which means we need to have that accreditation. And we're looking at leveraging this on that global program. Whilst there's only half a dozen boats in Australia, there's more than 18 boats, I think 24 in total around the globe, that we may be able to play a part in. So that's looking very strong. So what we found, though, is with this, there's a lot of work emerging at the moment, and having the Defence Security Accreditation has put us in the box seat. So we're looking at programs such as the Hunter, Austral's future work, and they've got a lot of work in the pipeline. The AUKUS program coming, autonomous vessel components, and other weapons defence programs. And with this defence accreditation, we found when we received it, we started receiving phone calls from weapons manufacturers in the US and things like the missile program that's coming into Australia in 3 years' time. It looks like there's some role for us to play in that. But also in the US submarine supply program, it looks like there's going to be some very short-term and ongoing work coming through from that program, which we're very excited about. So defence is looking very strong going forward. Next slide. Okay, this is a traditional part of the business, our mining industrial products. We've developed a very clever thing called Forever Pipe, and it's when we make a duo bar process, which means we use centrifugal casting, which is actually spinning up a die and pouring molten metal in, and it flings the metal out to make a pipe. So we make an outer vessel, which is a pressure vessel, and then some seconds and at a certain temperature, we pour an inner pipe, which forms a very hard wearing pipe for applications such as alumina industry, manganese, nickel processing. and that pipe lasts 10 to 15 times longer than the traditional cladding process they used to use. Very clever product. We're the biggest centrifugal casters in Australia, and we'll continue to grow that. And it was doing 6.6 odd million last year. So we think it's got some legs. It's not going to be big like the other products, but it's a specialised VEEM product we're very proud to have. And of course, mining and industrial was based around our foundry and dynamic balancing work, our plating and non-destructive testing, and that's continuing on for our West Australian mining industry. So everything's quite strong in our business, and we're, I think, and I'll just give you a summary of all this. In conclusion, we're looking at 3 or 4 parts of our business with very strong growth prospects, and the mining and industrial just retaining its steady growth as it does. It's very rare for a company to have one high technology large global market product. VEEM has 2, which is extraordinary, and defence, which we thought was going to be more of a passive role in our business, is now ramping up to be a very important part of our business. So we're very excited with the future we've got, and we're looking forward to see VEEM growing both in Australia and overseas. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mark. Plenty of questions coming in. Just to start with, you mentioned at the beginning, you've been profitable for 40 years since you listed. That must put you in a very unique group of company, Mark. So congratulations.
Thank you. It's coming from a private company, making money every year is extremely important. There's always, as the directors back then, you've always got those guarantees you've put forward. You're under a lot of pressure, and we've learned how to do that very well. Since we've floated, we've sort of prided ourselves that every year we pay dividends and make profit, which is what we're about.
I also want to ask you to elaborate a bit more. In the earlier slides, the accreditation, you made a highlight of the accreditation you've got. Just to elaborate a bit more how important that is and what doors that opens for future business and growth.
Yeah, particularly with defence area, you've simply got to have all of the necessary accreditations to be able to verify that you're capable of doing this work. It's extremely demanding work, it's high compliance work. And to give you some example, if we have a valve failure on a Collins-class submarine, it will result in loss of ship and crew. So it's extremely important that we follow these rigorous guidelines, and we've been quality accredited since 1987. We're one of the oldest accredited companies in Australia, and we've steadily moved through that. And I think the framework and the structure we put in place is one of the tools we use to give the company the greatest long-term success.
And the question here, straight to the point, this one, where do you see the main opportunities for growth across your businesses?
I would have said gyro stabilisers for sure, up until Sharrow. And I think that Sharrow now will represent a very large growth area of our business. So I think the 2 of them have got very large markets to go into, and they both have great growth opportunities. So from one big growth area, we now have 2, which is exciting.
Good problem to have. And the question related to that, when do you anticipate delivering the first Sharrow prop?
We think first quarter of next financial year, and it will steadily rise from that point. We have 300 people in a queue that have paid a small deposit to get in the queue, and we're working through those vessels to find the ones that are most suited to Sharrow straight up. Part of the process of this is not simply just rolling it all out. Because of the nature of these fixed pitch propellers on inboard applications, there's a lot of design work that goes into developing the series. So by having a wide range of vessels that are queued up, we can develop that series very, very efficiently and reasonably quickly, but it still will take us some time. There'll be some years of development to get all the algorithms in place to automate it all.
I understand that. And one here, it says, hi Mark, drones are a hot topic in defence right now. Is it possible for you to comment a little more on what sort of autonomous vessel technology you're developing?
We're involved in the propulsion side. There is some unique requirements for some of these propulsion pieces. Obviously, some of them don't have to last very long. So that presents all sorts of interesting opportunities in different types of materials that we're going through at the moment. So I think we're going to see some fairly interesting technology developed over the next few years.
And you mentioned earlier that the size of the propeller market, I think you said new builds is around 350 million, existing 2.3 billion. What
Yep.
percentage of this propeller market can VEEM target with the new Sharrow propeller?
Well, that's interesting. What we found with gyro stabilizers, it is a little harder to retrofit them because you have to move so many pieces around inside the vessel. With Sharrow, you simply bolt the propeller onto the shaft. That's all it is. You simply swap out the propeller to gain the advantage of up to 10% reduction in fuel and carbon footprint. So about 40% of that existing market is workboats, and they're all using between, say, 700,000 and $1.5 million worth of fuel a year. So you can see that payback on a very expensive propeller is 8 to 12 months. Very quick, and it's probably the cheapest and fastest way you can reduce the carbon footprint of a fleet.
And a question here, your recent first half 24 results showed, very solid revenue and EBITDA growth. What can we expect in terms of growth going forward?
Well, that's it. The pressure's on us to continue that growth pattern. So there's new machinery coming for propellers. We're pushing gyro stabilizers, obviously very hard to work on the growth side of that. But also we're introducing a very clever supply chain process for what we call it the shaft line. It's the bit the propeller bolts onto. It's the shaft, it's the bracket, the rudder, the coupling. And we've got a global supply chain for our gyro stabilizers. So this year we're tapping into the global supply chain for shaft lines as well, which will make us extremely competitive globally. So we expect to see some growth in that area of the business as well.
And for people on today's webinar that are just hearing about you for the first time, talk about the board's current dividend policy, please.
Well, we distribute 30% of our net profits after tax, and that's our guideline. We believe it's a combination of growth and continuing on with our research development. So we have to make sure that's met. But we also believe a responsible public company should be paying dividends as well as that growth, so people are getting a return.
And a couple more questions are coming flying in here. I think at least one of them we can get. What's the expected average profit margin for Sharrow, and has dynamic strategy for it been defined yet?
Look, we've generally as a company, our gross profit margins are in the mid 40s to 50, and that's where every product has traditionally sat, and it's very important to us. So propellers are always a little higher because they have more capital equipment, but in the case of Sharrow, we believe we can capitalise on the fact we've spent 20 years perfecting the techniques. So we believe that when we go to Sharrow, the propellers will cost probably 2 to 3 times more than our existing product. And we will be expecting our GPs to rise a little, but of course it's on a much greater amount of money per propeller.
And just to finish off, last question, is there an expectation to build a manufacturing facility in the USA? And if so, when? What would capital requirements for that require?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. We were focused very much on ex-Eastern Bloc Europe for our next propeller expansion, and that was what we were working on before Sharrow came. When Sharrow came, there is a very strong case to build a facility in the US, and I know that the Sharrow organisation is very keen for us to do that, and there are a lot of opportunities that will come from that. So at the moment, we're actually assessing both of those. We expect it's a couple of years away yet, but it may well be US. And you're talking initially probably $20 to $30 million as a facility to produce similar to what we've been producing at VEEM in terms of number of propellers. So most of that's done through commercial HPs on the machinery. So it's not hugely capital intensive, but it depends on how we do that, whether we buy existing company in the US and bring our products into it, or whether we start from scratch. So quite a few decisions to be made yet, but I can assure you that we're working on that very solidly at the moment.
Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today, and great to see you grow and the company doing incredibly well. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure, and thank you to everyone else that's listened in.